Our previous videos have been looking at descriptive statistics. So we're summarizing the data set from a subset of the population. So we've been summarizing the responses from our collective bargaining survey that hopefully represent the rest of the members of our union. So we're doing descriptive statistics and we're exploring the data. In our previous videos, we looked at measures of central tendency, mean, median, mode. We looked at variability, range, interquartile range, standard deviation, and variance. We can write a bit of Python code to do all of these and to then put it into a nice table so at a quick glance we can describe the data. So to do that, we'll just look at this set of code here that we have under the section called Summary Statistics. And again, this is from drstephpowers.github.io/BIA. We are working under the Python workbook called Descriptive Statistics. Open in GitHub, open in Google Colab, log into your Google Drive. And you'll see that we are doing this from DF2. So we are using the coded data set. By using the coded data set, then what that allows us to do is to pull all these calculations and then later decide what's relevant and what's not. So what we're going to do then is we're going to find the mode. And so all I've done is pull the codes from the previous sections of this workbook. Now, as we stated previously, you don't have to make it this complicated. It doesn't have to be 3 lines of code that get relabeled each time. We can simplify this, right? We can find head. We can even do, oops, go away. Okay, so if I do this and then I just take that off, I can apply all of this simultaneously. And you can always check to see if you can combine what you think is multiple levels of code, right? So we can go and do this and run it and it runs, right? And we can even look at it if we want. DF2 mode. So when you're newly coding, you might do it line by line just to help you keep clear in your mind. As you code more, you can start to merge your code into more efficient language. So here we're going to find the mode. We're going to do numeric only. We're going to drop the NAs. We're going to have it give us just the first row because remember, some of the questions have lots of different responses and there's only one of each. So that was the extra rows in the table. And then we want to transpose it so that it is in a column like this so that we can merge it with others. So if I just go back, so here we have our mode. To find our range, we're going to take our coded table, do max minus our table min. So remember, range is the max minus the min. We can find the interquartile range. Again, this was the code we used before. You can simplify this, right? We can just take this minus this and define that as the interquartile range. We don't have to have 3 lines of code. We can simplify it down. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take all this information. We're going to create a new table we're going to call data frame summary, df_summary. It is going to be a data frame. We're using pandas, so we need to make sure that in this session we have imported pandas as PD, import skippy.stats as stats. You need that in order to make this code run. If it's giving you an error, then it's quite possible that you forgot to install those packages. All right, so let's go back to our list here. All right, so we can know that it uses pandas because that's the PD here in this. We're going to create a data frame. So what goes in this data frame? Well, let's create the variables. We're going to create a variable called min, which uses our df2 min. So find the min of our coded table. We're going to find the max and call that column max. We're going to pull the modes we just calculated. That's the df2_mode. We're going to make that a column. We're going to find the medians. So from df2, the coded table, we're going to find the median and we're going to make it a column called median in our new table. We're going to find the means of our coded table and create a column called mean. We're going to take this range that we just calculated and have that be a column. We're going to take the interquartile range that we just calculated and make that a column. And then we'll add in our standard deviation. If you also want to do variance, we could add that in too. Got to push the right buttons. Let's call it variance. And recall from our previous video that that would be df2.var. Okay. And then we want to output the table. All right, so let's do that. Let's run this. And we get a table that looks like this. So what we can quickly see, well, respondent doesn't matter, but question 1, minimum value 1, maximum value 5, most common 5. And so going back right to our priorities, question here, number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increasing pay is the most popular. In this case, the median and the mean mean nothing because remember these are nominal, but we would know that because we know our survey questions and our measurement scale. We can see range in terms of how far apart the responses are, but again, it's nominal data, so range, interquartile range, standard deviation don't mean anything. So we would go and look at this and it's pull the information for every variable. This is a nice kind of piece of code that we could hang on to and run for each new data set, output this table here, and then we would go through and say, okay, what is relevant to what data? So question, let's just take a stab at some random questions. Question 5, do you believe your pay is similar to or the same to other organizations? Nominal question, right? It's categories. It doesn't have a ranking to it. And so when we look at question 5, we would simply look at mode. The most common response here is no, they don't believe their pay is similar to other organizations. So we're looking for issues that are arising from our data set. Let's take a question. Here's the Likert scale ones, 10 to 15. The Likert scale ones, remember we can use mean, median, mode. We can use all of the options really to us. So here we have question 10. The lowest is 1, the max is 5. Well, that's only choices are 1 through 5. The most common response is a 2, more on the negative side. The median is a 2, more on the negative side. The question here was how much control, and so they're lower on the not much control. And what else? We can see the mean is 2.38, so skewing to there's some small number of people that seem to have more control. What else do we got here? We have a range, so the min and the max. So in terms of the responses for level of control, we got 1s and 5s. So some people with no control and some people with complete control. So there is variability in this. And then interquartile range, for the most part, most people don't have a whole lot of variability in terms of their control, but there's a handful that are outside. And standard deviation will tell you how much that range is. So really we could say, well, there's this measure of central tendency here at 2.38. And then on average, people are within one of that, either direction, right? So people are really in the middle of the amount of control. So you can, at a quick glance, then look at what's happening with your data. Question 23 is north, south, east. That's the locations of our campuses. So we expect responses from all 3 locations. We can see that the most common response is a 3. So north, south, east. We get more respondents on this survey from the east location than the other 2. The median is irrelevant, the mean is irrelevant, the ranges are irrelevant because it is nominal data. Question 24 is how many years you've been here. It is ratio data, so we can use all of these rows, and we can see it ranges from 1 to 30. And the most common response is 2 years, so multiple people with 2 years. The average is 4.5. And we can see that, or sorry, I have this wrong. The median is 4.5. So half the people have been here more than 4.5, half the people have been here less than 4.5, and the average is 8.4. So what we're seeing is that half the people have been here 4.5 years or more, half have been here 4.5 years or less. But if the average is 8.4, that means there's a small handful of people who've been here a really long time, causing the mean to be much higher than the median. And so we can actually see the spread between the longest someone's been here and the shortest is 29 years difference between 1 year and 30 years. We can see the middle 50% spread across 10 years, and the average distance from that 8.3 average is 8.4, right? So you can see that really the bulk of it is between 1 and 16. So we can collect data here. My table must have wrapped too much, got too big. So here is our variance that we included as well, and that's just standard deviation squared. So we created a summary table of all the key central tendencies and variabilities. There is a built-in summary inside of Python. We have looked at it before, and this is the describe command. So we could have just, instead of writing that code, write a df2.describe. So it's going to then do the mean, the average, the standard deviation, your min and your max, and then this 25% is your Q1, your point at which 25% is below, and this 75% is your Q3. So you can find the interquartile range as the difference between the 75% and the 25%. Okay, and then your median is this 50%, Q2. Half is below, half is above. So you can see here that the built-in describe gives you a lot of what we did by hand. You could add to this your interquartile range calculation. What else are we missing here? So mode is what is not represented in this list, where you could, on your own, do that determination maybe separately. So you could do describe to get much of this, and then you could do mode for the pieces that are missing. Rather than do that whole piece of code, if you want, you can do it that way. So there's a number of ways to summarize and describe what is happening with our data as we explore relationships and see potential issues, flags. What we're looking for is flags. What are some possible interesting phenomenon, interesting things in terms of relationships, how people responded to the data, to help us then flag things to explore.